Hello. So I styled my hair a little bit differently today. Just by coincidence this week, I had more than one client to whom I've recommended this type of tighter mermaid waves to. So I thought I would give it a try myself because I haven't styled my hair like this in ages and I quite like it. I think it's giving a little bohemian, maybe a little beachy waves, maybe a little Hagrid from Harry Potter. But I think talking about my hair is a great way to introduce today's topic, which is hair and outfit styling tips for broad shoulders. I know I've been going pretty heavy and deep with my video topics for the last few weeks, so I thought it was time to talk about a bit of a lighter hearted topic this week. So my shoulders have been a big insecurity for me growing up. Also, coincidentally, a lot of people around me just happen to have very narrow shoulders that made me feel a certain type of way about my own shoulders.
At least you guys can wear halters. I've got man shoulders.
Just to be clear, I do love them now. I've come to love how certain clothes just hang off of broad and angular shoulders like mine. And I say that because some comments always just seem to assume that I'm putting myself down when I bring up these topics. But that's not the case at all. It's just that my shoulders are wide compared to the rest of my body, and that is a fact. So over the years, I've developed some tips and tricks of my own to make sure that my shoulders are not the first and only thing that people notice when they see me. And today I'm gonna be sharing all of them with you, so make sure to stay tuned. So like I said, hairstyle is one way to make the shoulders appear narrower. And I've brought this point up in my previous video about layers, that hair can create a visual break in the shoulder line when it's long enough, and it adds that narrowing effect. And the reason why I said my hairstyle today is a great way to introduce this topic is because I wanted to talk about the size of the visual break. Obviously, with the waves, there's more width and volume added to my hair, and that makes the visual break a lot bigger than straight hair. Just like how thicker straps can make the shoulders appear narrower than spaghetti straps because more surface area is covered, that same idea applies to hair volume as well. Now, does that mean long straight hair that doesn't have much hair volume or very thin straps like spaghetti straps are not effective at all at adding a narrowing effect? Not necessarily. What a lot of people don't know about shoulder width is that there's a relationship between your neck and your shoulders. A lot of times when we say broad shoulders, people just tend to focus on the shoulder width itself. But because your neck is connected to your shoulders, and when you're looking at someone, you're seeing this whole area together. So the length of the neck can actually have an impact on how wide the shoulders appear to the eye. How wide something appears is always relative. To what? To length. If we use the face as an example, the width to length ratio of the face is what determines whether the face appears long or short, not the actual length in measurement. So you could technically have a shorter face than mine in measurement, but if my face is much wider than yours, then my face will actually appear shorter because of the width to length ratio. And just as how long or short something appears is in relation to the width, how wide something appears is also relative to the length. And because the neck is the closest feature to the shoulders that represents length, a longer neck can actually make the shoulders appear less wide and vice versa. And this is why I said long straight hair with little volume or very thin straps like spaghetti straps can still help with adding a narrowing effect on the shoulders because they still emphasize a vertical line. So even when the straps are very thin like spaghetti straps, they're still better than tube tops because at least we're adding a vertical line that visually offsets that horizontal width. Also, long straight hair is actually more effective at lengthening the neck because the straight hair continues the outline of the neck downwards. So if big waves add a narrowing effect on the shoulders by creating a wider visual break and by covering more surface area, straight hair on the other hand creates a smaller visual break than wavy hair, but it's still more effective at lengthening the neck. So the two are similar but different and different but similar. Now, which style you want to go with depends on a lot of other factors as well, like facial proportions, the natural hair type and texture, the overall vibe you want to go for, etc. So there is no single way to decide which style is better if we're just talking about the width of the shoulders. Now, this also means that the shoulders might appear broad because of a short neck. If we compare the same width in shoulders with different lengths of necks, a shorter neck definitely makes the shoulders look a little bit broader. So understanding whether it's the neck that's short or the shoulders that are actually wide, that can be important as well, because if your neck is short, then we obviously want to avoid styles that shorten the neck further. So styles like blunt bangs that truncate this area, or a bob at a length that cuts the neck right in half or covers the neck partially. Those are the types of styles to steer away from if your neck is already short. So when you think about the width of the shoulders, always remember to think in relation to the length of the neck. So if lengthening the neck means the shoulders are going to appear narrower, then choosing different necklines can obviously have an effect as well, right? High necklines like mock necks or turtlenecks, they make the neck appear shorter because they cut the neck at a higher point than where it connects to the shoulders. And high necklines don't add any visual break in the shoulder line, like in this décolletage area. So the width of your shoulders is covered in one solid color. On the flip side, V-necks or scoop necks have the opposite effect of lengthening the neck and adding that visual break in the shoulders. The color of the tops can also have an effect. Darker colors contract and lighter colors expand. So if you're looking for that narrowing or slimming effect, then a darker color is generally better. I tend to lean towards darker colors in my tops in general, but I do have 3 white t-shirts, a crew neck, a scoop neck, and a V-neck. And I've noticed that the regular crew neck I wear a lot as a base layer, so if I'm throwing a jacket on top or anything like that. But when I wear a t-shirt alone, I much prefer the scoop neck or the V-neck because I feel like the tighter crew neck just makes me feel like I'm broader and I look more restricted. At least with darker colors, I can use jewelry to add vertical lines, right? But with lighter colors, the chains are not as visible. So I just tend to steer away from lighter colored tight crew necks if I'm wearing it by itself. And then similar to the proximity of the neck to shoulders, the chest area is also very close to the shoulders, right? It's not necessarily that a bigger chest will make the shoulders appear broader, but when the shoulders are already broad, a bigger chest can just make the overall upper body look and feel a little stockier. And I felt like this every time I wore a push-up bra in my early 20s. I felt like I always looked broader and stockier for some reason, and I never really liked the look, so I've kind of gotten used to wearing wireless bras or bralettes. So I've always been about de-emphasizing the boob area, so I would also avoid prints or any added details or texture that adds more volume to this area, because with the broad shoulders, they just make me look very top heavy. And maybe this is just a preference thing, I don't know, but I've always thought that big boobs looked a little bit awkward on me. So the idea of a boob job has never really crossed my mind, even though a lot of people around me say that it is the single best thing that they've ever done for themselves. But if you're similar to me, pay attention not only to the neck, but also to the color or any sort of added details or texture that might add more visual interest and volume to your chest area. The next area to pay attention to is the seam line along the shoulders. So in general, seam lines that are narrower than where the shoulders meet the arms, so this like curved area, seam lines that are narrower than that can make the shoulders appear narrower as well. The downside of that is they make the arms appear bigger in contrast. So if you're self-conscious about your arms, maybe about how fleshy it appears or anything like that, then I wouldn't recommend going too narrow with the seam lines. Also, too narrow of a seam line can make the fabric in the armpits area bunch up, and that's really uncomfortable. So I would recommend going just slightly narrower, like maybe like this t-shirt, or going really oversized to like a drop shoulder style. What I've noticed is with seam lines that actually meets the angular part of my shoulders, that's when my shoulders appear the widest. And this is also somewhat dependent on the thickness of the fabric, because the seam line is where 2 pieces of fabric meet, right? So there's naturally a little bit of extra thickness added. So when the fabric is thick enough and when the seam lines fall right on where the shoulders meet the arms or maybe slightly over, that extra thickness in the fabric can make the shoulders appear broader. So it's always something that I look out for and try to avoid. Another trick I like using, and maybe this is a bit of an unusual tip, is to make use of shoulder pads. I think they're especially great for structured garments like blazers. And I know the usual tip for broad shoulders is to avoid shoulder pads altogether because they can make your shoulders appear broader. But I actually think it's the placement of the shoulder pads and the overall silhouette of the garment that's more important. So the shoulder pads have got to be quite a bit wider than my actual shoulders. And that usually means the silhouette is going to be oversized. So like an oversized blazer with the shoulder pads and the angular structure, that's a really great example. Now, the reason why I say to go a little bit wider or quite a bit wider than your actual shoulders with an oversized fit is because with a regular fit, the shoulder pads can actually add more width because one, the seam line likely meets right where the shoulders end, and two, everywhere else is still pretty fitted. So the outline of the body becomes pretty obvious. Now with shoulder pads that are quite a bit wider than your actual shoulders and with an oversized fit, the way the fabric sort of hangs down from the shoulder pads creates a rectangular shape, and the garment doesn't really hug any part of your body. So you just kind of end up looking like you're wearing an oversized piece of garment instead of your proportions becoming really highlighted or appearing imbalanced. So I guess it is a way of hiding your body, if you will. But like I said, what I came to love about my shoulders is the way that fabric can just kind of hang off of the frame. Like if my mom were to try any of my oversized blazers, she's like 5'2", 100 pounds. Her shoulders are like this narrow. The blazers are gonna look like she's swimming in them. Like they're gonna completely drown her. So I just came to love the fact that my shoulders have the right frame to support this type of like cool and effortless silhouette. It's a little bit masculine, a little carefree, less restricting. And if I'm really having fun, I could even go all out with the shoulder pads. I recently got this sage green bomber jacket with very exaggerated shoulder pads. It's giving like heavy 80s vibe with the whole silhouette. And I love it because at this point, it's not about trying to conceal or bring balance or anything like that. It just becomes a statement piece. And I think it's the level of exaggeration that kind of brings the fun back to getting dressed instead of worrying about what's right or what's wrong. So in that sense, it's a way of breaking the rule. You know, instead of saying don't wear shoulder pads if you have broad shoulders, you can go for it. Just make sure it's the right style. So make sure they're big enough or wide enough or roomy enough, etc. Lean into it and go all out even. Why the hell not? Well, that's all of the tips I have for you today. I tried to come up with tips that are not really seen elsewhere, or if they were generic tips like about the necklines, I at least tried to explain why there's such an importance placed on necklines when we're talking about shoulders, etc. So if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything else from this channel. I'll see you in my next video, and until then, stay unique and stay gorgeous.